Hey there, this is a review for our Dragonbane Shadows over Gloomshire adventure, session 4. We picked up right where we left off last time, just after the battle with the Death Knight. They find they're pretty beat up at this point, but they're deciding to push on. So they find an empty crypt, and that was all done by chance. There's some, in the book here, there's some random rolls for like crypt contents, because there's plenty of them in the cemetery, and we rolled up one and it didn't have any encounters in it, or traps or anything like that. So they take a short, not a short rest, I think it's a stretch rest, which is like 15 minutes, I'm pretty sure. They did find a spell scroll in the crypt, and it was for the spell Purge, which is a spell Scarif can use, but he's got to learn the spell. It's a rank 2 spell, and he's got to learn that. He's got to learn the Banish spell first, but it's within his School of Magic, which is Animism. So he holds on to that. After their rest, they move on, and Tildren kind of sneaks ahead. And he sneaks ahead and comes to the square, and he hears this wailing noise. And when he gets close to the square, he sees that there's a lot of undead in the square. There's thralls, there's skeletons, there's the Stygian wolves, and on top of this statue in the center of the Wailing Square, this black obsidian statue of a crying angel is one of the winged hairless bats. I can call her Gloom. What do they call them, actually? Just drew a blank on the name. They're called a winged horror. That's what they're called. Aptly named. They see one of those, and he sees one of those up there, and then he also sees this hooded figure, and it motions to the winged horror, and it comes down off the statue, and he gets on it, and it flies off, and the host of undead in the square march out, and it doesn't take him long to figure out that it's marching towards the village of Gloomshire. He goes back to the rest of his companions, reports in what he sees. They'd actually seen the winged horror fly over, and but he fills them in on the rest. They come to the conclusion that there's nothing they could really do to help the village. They can't get ahead of that host, and they're in rough shape enough where they don't think fighting it is a good idea. So they kind of let it go its own way. They go into the square itself, and after all those things had left the square, the wailing stopped. But when they go back in, it starts up, and they learn that it's coming from the 4 crypts that are in the 4 large crypts that are on the perimeter of this square. They're actually set at each one of the compass points, and they're restless souls that are wailing. There's not much they can do for them either. So Scarif wants to examine the statue a little bit closer, which he does. Doesn't really learn anything. It's nothing special, just a statue made of obsidian of a crying angel. So they push on more northward, and they come across, and as soon as they leave the square, the wailing stops. And this wailing is horrific. It's very just unnerving. They do come across 3 young girls, sitting around a tombstone, and they're singing this very solemn hymn. And then they quickly realize that they're undead. They had to make I think at this point they had to make some will check on their wills, and they all passed, so they weren't disheartened. I think they all passed. This happened a few times, where I think Tildren actually did become disheartened because he pushed the roll, and he was successful, but you have to take a condition when you push a roll, and he took disheartened anyway, so like he couldn't avoid it. Oh, I'm about to have company. And they but they push on, and eventually they come to the Temple of the Blue Rose, which is what they've been looking for. And it's just very large. It sits up on a hill, and it is in rough shape. And they see it has a set of stairs to go up to these two double doors that are made of copper that are all oxidized, and it's flanked by very large pillars that hold up this crumbling roof. They head up that way, and they're greeted by a host of skeletons that come out from behind the pillars. There's like 9 skeletons. So there's 4 of them. They have the NPC Maeve, who's also a paladin of the Blue Rose, with them. And battle begins. Erd actually uses his paladin ability. Again, I don't remember exactly what it's called. It's kind of like a smite, but it's an area effect. It goes out in the direction of a cross. And he affects over half the skeletons, or at least half the skeletons, with that ability. He didn't kill any of them, but it basically chewed up half their hit points. They go back and forth. Tildren, Maeve, all of them doing damage. Anybody with an edged weapon is doing, or a piercing weapon, is doing slightly less damage against the skeletons, but they're still doing damage. But the critical point in this fight was Scarif, who's our old Wolfkin mage animism specialist. He takes a hit, and we have a moment where I'm like, he hadn't gone yet, so he still had an action. So I was like, well, you know, in the rules you can evade if you haven't used your action, or if you have the heroic ability like Tildren does, and you can just burn willpower points and use an evade. Or you can not do that, but you're gonna get hit. And I did say, like, hey, you know, in Dragonbane you're often better off not getting hit and losing your action than taking the hit. It depends on your character, right? So, and how he's set up. So ultimately, Matt decides he's just going to take the hit and ride it out. They had done some healing when they rested. So I roll damage, and I roll, they're using rusty short swords, and I roll max damage, and it's 10 points of damage. Unfortunately, come on there, Jackson. This is Jackson. Come on, buddy. Unfortunately, Scarif only had 8 hit points left, so he drops down, and now he has to start making death saves. Unfortunately, as well, they had been pushing their rolls and such for quite a while. He had conditions on his attributes, so he has to make, I think it's con rolls or something like that. But he has a condition, so he's doing them all with a Bane, basically disadvantage. So the combat's still going on. He's down. The others are fighting the skeletons. They see their companion go down. They're battling it out, and the whole time, Scarif's making death saves. And ultimately, at the end of the combat, it came down to he had 2 passes and he had 2 failures. So it came down to, you know, the last roll, and he rolls with with his Bane, and he fails. So 3 death saves and you're dead. So we lost Scarif. He died in that battle. They kind of debate at this point. They're like, what should we do next? They suggested that they were going to rest in the cemetery overnight, and I just explained to them that based on what you've seen here, and it's very active, like all around them they can hear in the fog and in the mist, they can hear undead moving around. And I basically told them, like, you will not get a shift rest here. Like, it just won't happen. The place is just filled with undead, and it's far too evil. So there was some talk. Oh, and then the other thing that happened, this kind of actually happened the way it did in the game too, is I forgot it, and then I had to tell them. When Scarif dies, they hear a bell from the chapel toll. And so this kind of alarms the remaining party members. They're not sure what that means. It's the first time they've heard it. But they actually, there was some contemplation about like what do they do with Scarif's body? Like they don't have the strength to bring it with. They talked about maybe, cutting his head off to like prevent like, her whole vampire thing. They weren't sure. Just there was a lot of like, we don't know what's going to happen to him. They don't do any of that. They end up trying to locate another crypt. Easily done. All random rolls. These rolls didn't go so well for him. They go in. Tildren goes in. He trips a trap. Again, randomly generated. But he's able to do an evade. He dodges these iron spikes that shoot out. But then out of the shadows comes a ghast, and they have to do battle with that. Not a super tough battle, but they were really hurting at this point, and we're not really up for fighting. But they have no choice now, so they're battling with this ghast. Maeve shoulders her way through the combat and to get inside the crypt and hits the ghast in the back with her greatsword. And ultimately they bring it down. I don't remember I think they took a little bit of damage. But now they're depleted. And I found out above board, I didn't know this at the time and I never tracked this. Obviously it's up to the players, not me, but I think Tildren was down to 2 hit points and Erd was down to 1 hit point and Maeve was down to less than half her hit points. She took a pretty good beating from the skeletons. So they were in really rough shape. They did take time to loot the crypt that they were in. They found a silver necklace that was worth 55 silver pieces. But they decide they need to go back to town. They leave Scarif's body in this empty crypt and head back. I rolled randomly, they didn't really have it in the rules, but I rolled a d6, and in my head I was like, if it comes up, I think it was a odd number, they were going to have an encounter, and if it's even, they won't. And it came up even, luckily for them. So they didn't have any encounters. So they're on their way back. They reach the village of Gloomshire, and they can see that the guards at the north gate are fighting the remnants of that undead horde that marched on the village. They wait because they're still really hurt. They have no means of healing each other or anything like that. Healing is not... Scarif was their only real means of healing. He had a healing spell. They're in rough shape. So they actually wait out the battle. They hide and wait out the battle. And the guards finish off there and they approach the gate. They're almost shot by the guards because the guards are pretty jumpy at this point. The village has been attacked. But they recognize the party and let them in. They talk to one of the guards. They're told that they lost a guard to the winged horror. It snatched him up and flew off with him. And they also have learned that the little carnival that was outside the west gate got hit by the winged horror. And there are reports that there are many members of that dead. And that was enough to actually get the rest of the carnival members to flee inside the walls of Gloomshire, so they're trying to remain as safe as they can. The party goes to the Slippery Fox Inn. They're taken care of by Esther, the mallard that owns the place, and Billy, her assistant. They learn, and there's villagers in there kind of huddled. Everybody's scared. They see the party show up. They're bloodied. So Esther immediately tries, above board to bandage them, and doesn't do anything mechanic-wise, but narratively, she's taking care of them. She's trying to take care of them. Billy gets them food and drink, and some of the townsfolk actually chip in to help out, and or pitch in to help out, I should say. And yeah, so they talk about what do we do next, and they're like, we need help. We can't do this on our own. That cemetery is very dangerous. So they come up with the idea that they want to recruit Victor, the mallard demon hunter that they'd met earlier, and so he's been out fighting. He does return a short time later, and they talk to him, and he agrees to help them. What else do they do? They end up actually, once they get bandaged up and get some food, they go see Minerva at the Chapel of Light to let her know what's going on. And Minerva actually, she says that she's been very busy. She knows about the attack. She's been helping, and she's a healer, so she actually heals the party members of most of their damage. And then they make an agreement that they're going to go back to the cemetery the next day. They'd also spoke with, while they were at the inn, the elf bard Bellamy. Actually, he pitched in to help bandage them up and stuff. And when they were talking about recruiting people, Bellamy offers to help them. I'll come, I'll help. And at first the party's like, oh, good, somebody else. And I explained to him, like, he is very 100% earnest in wanting to help, but he does not appear like he would be any help at all. Like, he's not a fighter. The story behind Bellamy is that he wants to be a hero. He's just not physically equipped to be a hero. So whether they take him or not, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that's kind of where we ended for the night. It was a shorter session. We got together a little bit later, and then I accidentally ran us a little bit late. So we ended, they did their, skill level ups, which I think everybody got a few. Matt made a new character. He's making a mallard mage, who is also, animism, because he wants to have the healing. And the way we worked that into the story is when they were talking to Victor, they asked Victor if he knew of anybody they could get to help. And the backstory is that Matt's new character actually came to town with Victor, came to Gloomshire with Victor, but he's an older Mallet. He's playing the older age. So, and their travel wasn't easy. They met with resistance. They fought on the way with undead and stuff on the way into town. So he's been resting. That's the story and how we narratively are getting Matt's new character in the game. So yeah, it was a good session. Again, really liking this module. Really liking Dragonbane. I mean, I've played it a lot. Not DM'd it a lot. This is like the 6th session I've actually GM'd. But it's a great system. And the group's liking it. Like, even Matt, who was in the midst of making up a new character, we were talking about, mechanical parts of it. And we figured out afterwards things that he could have done. Like, he learned things that he could have done to maybe, like evade or parry or something like that to avoid damage. It really, his character death really kind of, I think, sent home the fact that, and I had explained this to him, but that damage is a lot. Things do a lot. Monsters, bad guys, weapons, all that stuff. They do a lot of damage in Dragonbane. You don't have a lot of hit points. Your constitution score is already a hit point. So if you have Scarif had a 10 constitution. He has 10 hit points. So it is imperative, like, if you're built that way, you need to avoid damage. Like, Erd is different. I don't know what his constitution score is. I think it's fairly good. But he also has a 7 armor rating. And in Dragonbane, armor your rating is subtracted from your damage. Not all damage, but most of your damage. And like all the attacks they were getting in this session were getting up. So I was hitting Erd and I was chewing away at him, but he's able to soak up a lot more damage. So if you have a character like Erd, who's heavily armored, he's got plate mail, which he rolled randomly, which was a great roll for him because plate mail is super expensive in Dragonbane, and he has a helmet, so he has that 7 armor rating, so he can play that game a little bit like, I'm gonna take this hit or I'm not gonna take this hit. Whereas if you have a character like Scarif who's unarmored, 10 hit points is not a lot. And Matt had said that he had kind of equated, like, because I had told him they were getting hit with rusty short swords, he was thinking more along the lines of like D&D or Castle Crusades, where like a short sword does like a D6 damage, and in Dragonbane it's a D10. Like a great sword in Dragonbane does 2d10. So weapons do a lot of damage, and monster attacks do a lot of damage. So you're better off avoiding those if you can. But real good session. I don't know, like, that's session 4. So usually these adventures that we've been running in our Thursday night group, we try to do 4 to 6 sessions. So I don't know if they'll be able to wrap it up in 2 more sessions or not. Maybe, we'll see. Yeah, that was session number 4. Appreciate y'all listening. If you got any questions about Dragonbane or running games or anything like that, please feel free to leave a comment, and I'll catch y'all at the next one. Thanks.